I'm Barry Herzog. I am the Director of Strategic Technology Partnerships at Air Products. And essentially, my role here is while I do hail from the technology organization, I am really on the hunt for things that are external. So, partnerships, whether those are from small to medium sized technology providers, academia, national labs all the way through to large companies, and essentially running that from a technology perspective, enhancing our strategic capabilities, ensuring that while everything we do is decidedly focused on our industrial gas and providing the molecules that we provide to the industry, we certainly can't do that alone, especially within the guise of the new energy transition and decarbonization efforts that exist today. I mean, quantifying and seeing some measurable time savings through some of the Lux assets and the deliverables and the access to the LMS, and in particular, of course, the people. At its best, it's downright groundbreaking how quickly I can turn around if someone asks me about a specific company that no one's heard of, but by happenstance or by the fact that you guys have coverage of said company, it's as easy as me saying I've heard of them, because I've been able to then rely on the LMS and making sure that I'm looking at what's available on the member site that happens to have a profile of that company that you guys have done the diligence on. And obviously, if we look specifically to the deliverables on the company profiles, the Innovator Assessments, or what they're called today, I think is the scoring and the Lux take and having that opinion that I know I can rely on because I actually know the people that wrote that research has sped up my process tremendously. So quantifying it, yeah, I mean, I am less a numbers guy than I should be working in a technology organization, but I'm comfortable to say that on a good day, you guys can cut out several hours of work in any specific day. Several days of work, if it's a good market report that leads me to be able to digest it quickly and regurgitate it to some folks who need to get up to speed on a specific area, for sure that fits the bill of huge time savings. It's a good question. There's so much that I do value, and I've gone over different iterations, spoke to a lot of the hard facts around deliverables and things that I rely on specifically. But I thought more than anything, it's really just, I think you practice what you preach. I think Lux is often, in terms of your ongoing relationship with Air Products too, you're also innovating. You're also deploying some of the AI technologies that we're all keen on deploying, right? You practice the process of innovation to make sure that we're also innovating and we're also on the cutting edge. And so I just like having the peer group and access to the extension of the team to talk me down on certain things, but talk me up on certain other things. It's just very confident, enabling me to have confidence in my ability to speak to specific innovations and technologies that are out there. It always is amazing to me how much you can help with the core that we work on, but also inspire the new and make sure that I'm peeking my head up to look at the horizon and making sure that I'm also doing the innovation and the open innovation that's required for success at any organization. Yeah, for sure. Having access to Anthony, and even by extension, and maybe this is an overstep, but some of the folks that have developed some of your own internal AI tools, it made sense for me to have access to them because we're sort of also in the process of potentially exploring that and what it means to. There's certain progression in any given technology, right? And I think in the core sort of conventional technologies such as industrial gas or chemical refinement or things like that, new materials development, these have traditionally been multi-year efforts to ensure that you're able to go from just core idea and ideation all the way through to commercialization. And I just think in the AI space, that's just completely unheard of, right? I mean, in any given day, there'll be a new release of a new LLM or some new product line or some new company that's, lapping the last company. And so what we've realized within our organization, while we have a number of data scientists, and I think the edge, of course, is that our data scientists are also often chemical engineers or just have the industrial gas background. So we're a bit of a tough act to follow, but in realizing that having access to the company companies that are out there, and in particular, leveraging the primary research that Lux has done on some of those AI companies, some of the AI theories in terms of just how to use it within innovation specifically for me, but also more broadly, how you're using it in physics-based models and things like that. Just having access to that sort of level of speed to market has made us realize that while a lot of the computational technology development we've done within Air Products has been and will continue to be internally developed, we're also wildly aware that we might get lapped, right? And that's a real fear that we have, and we can't afford to have that happen. So having access to Lux to help support a lot of the implementation efforts that certainly folks on my computational and digital transformation teams are having, but also more broadly, how do we take the sort of readily available AI that we all currently use, whether in our private lives like ChatGPT or other components that we have more broadly internally within what we use, and really apply it to our everyday use within conventional technology development, right? So for me, those are some of the things that I think around AI-related decision making that Lux has truly been a huge asset for me. My organization was not brand new when I joined. I had taken it over from some previous iterations. And I think throughout, we've certainly had our fair share of key relationships and partnerships that we've had throughout the years. When I joined, I was really hoping to a little bit augment some of the ethos around partnerships, and realizing in particular that as we look at decarbonization, we look at energy transition and other industrial gas technologies, that certainly partnerships and open innovation can be applied and should be applied for the success of our business and those that are utilizing our gases. So my goals were essentially to change that mindset a bit, particularly around technology partnerships, but also do so for the betterment of not only Air Products, but for things like safety, for regulation and policy, and obviously just sort of in general, the better environmental efforts that we have across the industry. But I think at its core, Lux provides something quite unique where I think I like to sort of refer to it as research on research, right? It's how do organizations like mine, like strategic technology partnerships within a larger global technology organization, really benefit from using services like Lux or other peers of yours, and ensuring that we're having a third-party vantage point to really sort out the hype of what's going on, particularly because we're a very well-known entity in the industrial gas space. We are also not well-known in other areas, in non-industrial gas space. So it's not often that you get the opportunity to necessarily engage with companies that know exactly what it is that you do, even though we've been around for 80 plus years and are a rather sizable company. I think the idea of Lux's research on research, sort of stating that having a partner to have a view and do that all day long, 365 days a year, looking at the innovation landscape, looking at the technology providers, putting it into a really consumable format, is something that's really, really helped my team, helped me throughout my tenure here at Air Products, making sure that not only am I also able to rely on the third-party value that Lux has and the sort of nameplate version of what it is that you guys are deciphering, but oftentimes I've been able to engage other people within my organization and say, this comes from a company called Lux Research, and oftentimes there's some name recognition there. But it's helpful to have a third-party opinion to augment my own team's analyses. Oftentimes that said analyses are based on Lux's work and the primary research that you folks have done. So I think it's a multitude of things, whether it's just market reports and the way you've sort of develop those, certainly networking events and being able to have access to some of the partners that I might not have had otherwise, individual company profiles that certainly help at least grease the skids, so to speak, when I'm engaging with these companies and speaking with them, making the calls a little bit more warm. But more than anything, it's when I get an inbound call from an executive within my organization asking me to look at something, I get the opportunity to start with Lux, start with what you folks have. If you've covered the company, if you haven't, I'll ask you to do so if it's within your wheelhouse to do so. And then I'll have a head start in being able to then provide back to the folks that are asking with often some rather vehement urgency. Yeah, for sure. On the one hand, having access to Lux enabling me to sort of better serve those internal stakeholders is just live, where I've been having some instances over the years where I've had Lux resources come to visit us in our headquarters in Allentown, present to a group of folks on specific theory, things like scenario planning or different framework approaches to how you might look at some technology development internally, what specific opportunities that we should be looking at as a company with regard to individual technology areas that we're interested in. So sometimes it's just live. Sometimes it's really the opportunity to receive an inquiry from an internal stakeholder that's asking me about something specific. And having me have access to Lux has made me just agile and nimble enough to say, I don't need to go and ask 15 other people within my own organization whether or not they're aware of it and take that deep dive. I actually can just go to the Lux member site and take a look if you guys have some published reports on these things or different deliverables that can support the ask, then I can move on, right? I can get those answers out, and it's put me in a better light of the stakeholders. They then are more prone to rely on me and ask the similar questions of myself and my team. So that's another component of how Lux truly helps me enable better internal stakeholder relationships for sure. Sort of that internal open innovation, if you will. I'm going to invoke an old Lux Executive Summit keynote speech by one of the former chief research officers that I always admired tremendously and call Lux polymathic, which I was happy to have learned that word when he gave the speech in Boston, however many years ago. Um, I don't know exactly what it means, except that I believe it's something to do with being multi-talented and multifaceted and sort of multiple versions of value that I extract from the relationship. And so I like polymathic as a way to describe Lux. And hopefully that's as encompassing around the sort of innovation that I need to be having access to and how you guys support it from a polymathic perspective. So hopefully that helps.